All right, so I just wanted to start today and say thank you, Curtis, for joining us. Before we get into you and your family story and JC's story, can you give us a little bit of the background of you and your family?
Sure. So, my name is Curtis. I'm 44 years old. My wife and I, Trish, we've been together. We'll be 22 years this year. We have three beautiful girls. Love being a girl dad. It's the greatest thing on the planet. I challenge anybody to find a better job than this. I have a 20-year-old that is in the process of, well, this week finishing up her sophomore year of college. 17-year-old that will be graduating next month and going off to college. And then we have our forever eight, Jaycee, or if she's aging in heaven, 13 this year. That is our inspiration behind all of the nonprofit work that we do, advocacy work, podcasting, all of that. We live in Wisconsin. We started a nonprofit when Jaycee was diagnosed. We did it after we spent our first 12 days in the hospital, and we're receiving care packages, things like that, and she loved it. It was the one thing that really kind of gave her joy outside of, mom and dad being there and, the idea of her birthday coming up and things like that. So we decided when we came home, that's what we were going to do. We wanted to give back in a way that was going to mean a lot for a little, to be honest with you. I think people think of what we do as really kind of insignificant in the grand scheme of things, the care package side of things. But when you can see happiness on a child's face, getting mail, when we get mail, it's usually bills and things we don't want. And when they get it, they're overjoyed. So a simple idea that has grown over the years and something that we're very proud of. And we want to hope to continue to do it with the support of our community.
I actually love that because I realized also being in hard situations, it's the joy these kids have makes everything else that you're going through, like, you're like, come on, like, I shouldn't be complaining. Like, every little thing they bring the most joy, laughter, and they're going through like the hardest thing in life. I think that's the instant thing. They don't realize it, which is a blessing because we take on the burden. But that's why I had also, I don't know if I had mentioned, I had originally had like a fashion company. One of the things I wanted to do with the fashion brand that we started was giving kids with cancer hats. And hospitals were like shocked. They're like, why would you want to do blah, blah, blah? And it was like going back and forth. And I was like, because kids get bullied regardless. They get even more bullied when they lose their hair because kids are, unfortunately, that's how kids express themselves when they're kids. How they received the hats was one of the most, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just so grateful that I got that experience because it pushed me even harder to do. I used to do a lot of kids' stays in hospitals, but then because of COVID, that kind of stopped, and then it took years for them. And just as you probably know, it's very different now how to get in and out of hospitals with kids related. So I love what you guys are doing with that. And I'd like to hear more about the care packages and stuff and like what goes into it and how often you're doing them. But can you first just give us what JC was diagnosed with and how that looked to the family and how you guys all came together or didn't come together? If there was parts that just drove people apart, I'd love to know it all.
Sure. No, she was diagnosed January 30th of 2020, which is actually our oldest daughter's birthday. So it was the worst birthday of her life at that moment. Kind of in the middle of trying to have a birthday party. And after months and months of back and forth to doctors and ERs and things like that, we got a call that evening that we needed to be in Milwaukee yesterday. And so we in the middle of having cake and things like that, we packed the car with as little as we possibly could, and we got down there. She was diagnosed with choroid plexus carcinoma, which is a very rare brain cancer in children. It has a very terrible prognosis right up front. As a matter of fact, the direct words from the oncologist on the case were, "This is a diagnosis, and the prognosis isn't good." That's what we were left with in the waiting room of her second brain surgery within 2 weeks to remove the tumor and to hopefully give her a future. No idea what we were up against. It was probably the scariest thing in the world, not knowing, trying to relay the information to our other two kids that were just trying to live their normal life, go to school every day, and still keep Jaycee happy and try to keep her smiling and interactive and let her know that we were going to get her home. We were going to get through this no matter what. It definitely, I think, was difficult on the family as a whole, but we came together in a way that I don't think you can explain. This disease has a way of destroying things, but it also has a way of strengthening families and connections. My wife and I are part of a very, very small group. We're part of 20% of marriages that last through this diagnosis, and we can't tell you why. We can't tell you why we did. We can't tell you what worked and what didn't. But I will tell you that, like I said before, 22 years we've been together. We found a way, and it's one of those things that, without being able to explain it, we just get through every single day, but we allow her to guide what we're doing. And that diagnosis, it put us on an island, like it does many parents going through this disease, having no understanding, no connections, there's no book on this. There are handbooks out there, there's guides or things like that, but at that moment, there was nothing in front of us, nothing that we could read, nothing that we could lay our head on. We could reach out to anybody. We had nothing. And all we could do was rely on hope. All we could do was rely on our family and our friends and our community to get us through it. And it's not something that I would wish on my worst enemy to ever have to go through cancer, but especially with a child.
A parent should never bury their child.
We're not built for it. Parents, human beings are not wired to bury their kids. They're not wired to watch them suffer and not be able to fix it, not be able to do something about it. We are not meant to do that. And, I will say that a lot of people, in this journey, no matter what stage, whether it's kids or whether it's adults, they'll look at you as parents and say, I don't know how you do it every day. How are you so strong? And the answer is we're not. We're not any different than anybody else on this planet. The difference is we were put in a position where we didn't have a choice, and we found a way to make it through because our kids are literally our only future that we have. It doesn't matter what your thoughts, your ideals, your ideologies, none of that stuff matters. Our kids are our only future. And I think it's the one thing that we can come together as humanity and agree on.
I mean, we hope. Yeah, I 100% agree with that and understand that. Because I always say cancer is the one disease that doesn't care where you're from, what your religion is, what your wealth class is, what community you're raised in. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It will affect you whenever, wherever, however it wants, because it doesn't care about anything else. It's weird, and I think it's what you're saying. We get through it because this is one of the, I find, tightest, strongest communities, which is inspiring, that I didn't have when I was growing up with my mom. Because you couldn't even say the word cancer. Literally, people used to say the C word.
Yeah.
And people are like, what do you mean the C word? I was like, you couldn't even say the word cancer. Forbidden of a word. And it's wild to see that we're growing, getting further and further, but it's still one of the most shocking news people get. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And I don't remember I think you said it was 23% or something. Don't remember. You said the stats of people staying together with families is it kids with cancer or cancer in general?
This is going to be for pediatric cancer diagnosis. Oh. So with pediatric cancer, the divorce rate or rate of families that break up over this is over 80%. We're friends with families that are together. We're friends with families that have separated, and it's never about I've fallen out of love with this person. It's never about, any of that. It's that this disease and the mental stress and everything that goes on with the diagnosis of this, it is so difficult, and everybody handles it differently, that it can put a strain that you can't fix.
And person reminding each other of the loved one lost.
And that segues into when she was diagnosed, they wanted us to know if we wanted to do gene testing to kind of find out where it came from or anything like that. And we said no, specifically because we didn't want one of us having resentment towards the other one if it came from my bloodline or if it came from her bloodline. And they said, well, we wouldn't specifically say this or that, and we didn't want to know, because at that point we felt like it would cause strife between us in a time when we needed to be stronger together.
Yeah, that makes sense. And And it's not the same type of test that predicts if your other kids will have it, right?
Right. It was just kind
So,
of getting a history or things like that. And I've got a history, of cancer on my side of the family, like breast cancer, and things like that. And my wife has got some other stuff, but there's no rhyme or reason for this type of disease, this type of cancer, this diagnosis to have happened to our daughter. There's no reason for it. And that's the biggest thing when it comes to pediatric cancer is we really don't know why it happens. A lot of adults, not all of them, but you can sometimes associate it with lifestyle or,
yes, right.
things like that. And, with kids, it's like if a child gets liver cancer, they obviously weren't at the bar, right? And if they got lung cancer, they weren't smoking a pack a day. You can't associate these things.
Right.
And, but you will get internet doctors that will tell you it's because you ate this or you ate that or you drank this or drank that. And the reality of it is you can't prove that. There's no way for us to know why it affected her, and how long it had been growing, what decided to set off, further down the line in her treatments when she relapsed. Why did that happen? There's no rhyme or reason.
And how old was she when the first diagnosis came?
She was 6. So
Okay.
she was 2 weeks out. She's a Valentine's Day baby. So she was 2 weeks
Oh,
outside of her 7th birthday. And when we went in on that day, the only thing we told the neurosurgeon after things were going on is that she wants to be home for her birthday. And he looked at us and he said, probably not, and we ended up going home on the 12th. So 2 days before, because after her surgeries, she looked phenomenal. She impressed everybody. It was like, we're going to beat this damn thing. We're going to be that statistic that is outside of the norm. And, she walked herself out of the hospital 2 weeks after she was in there. 2 brain surgeries, a drain that was put in to release fluid in there, more MRIs and CTs than I can count, lumbar punctures, all of this. And the child walked herself out of the hospital. And we went to school a couple days later so she could see her classmates. It was unbelievable.
that's that's a testimony to the love, also.
Yeah.
And so she was 6 when she went through that, but she passed away when she was 8, though. So she
Correct.
was in remission for that 2 years.
So she started radiation therapy in March of 2020, and she ended that in May of 2020. And then at that moment, she was showing no evidence of disease. There was no cancer cells in her spinal fluid. The tumor wasn't growing back. So at that moment, by doctor's suggestion and by us kind of looking at things, it was decided that we were not going to proceed with chemo at that moment, which was the original plan, because it didn't look like there was any reason to put her through that. So from May until September, she was essentially just a normal kid, aside from the fact that we were stuck at home because it was COVID at that moment. The world had shut down in March, right before she started radiation therapy. But she was a normal kid. There was no signs of anything. She was acting normal. It was all great. And it was actually September 11th of that year, she woke up and she could not stand up straight. She couldn't hold her head up. And I know that my wife looked at me and I could see the same fear in her eyes that I had seen, when we were given the diagnosis. And I said, I told her right then, I said, we're not doing this. It's not happening again. There's no way. And we had our oncologist number, her cell phone number, and we called her on the phone and said, this is what's going on. She said, you need to get to the hospital right now. But through all of the testing then, it was coming back. There's nothing. She might have just caught a bug. You've got a weakened immune system. And within a few days, we got another call saying, we went through hundreds and hundreds of slides of her MRI, hundreds of them. We found one slide that had an eraser-sized lump on the bottom of her brainstem. It's inoperable. We need to start chemo right now. And so she officially relapsed at the end of September in 2020. So we started chemo right away. But no, she relapsed, and we started chemo in October of 2020. And that was by far I think, the hardest thing that she's ever had to go through. That the surgeries, the radiation, she never really had any side effects. It wasn't actually, she had 30 rounds, and it was until the very end her hair started to fall out in that one spot. But there was no real other side effects to it. And the chemo, the initial chemo that we had to have, it put her in a horrible position. And like I said before, it was 2020, we were COVID, so only one of us could be in the hospital with her. And so I was in there for all of her inpatient stays, things like that. And that first chemo, she got so sick before they even got started because her sodium levels got so out of control that she had been given the wrong saline. The level was wrong. And so it put her literally within points, like on the sodium scale, of going into a seizure. And they had to basically pump her up with the right kind of saline at a rapid rate that kind of turned her around enough. But it was a whole extra day of her being so sick, and it was the scariest thing ever because I was there by myself. And once we got the chemo started, she went through 2 rounds of what's called ICE chemotherapy, which is typically used for Hodgkin's lymphoma. And one of the drugs was called ifosfamide, and that drug had a horrible side effect with her. It would put her in a 12-hour locked in the box. She couldn't speak, she could not move, she couldn't communicate, and it was terrible. And the second round that they tried to do it, they gave her methylene blue. But the methylene blue, aside from the one part that her and I could find a way, and this was her personality to joke about it, aside from making her pee bright blue, the methylene blue ended up giving her tremors that were so bad that she would sit up in bed and she couldn't control it. And it was unreal. And at that point they had to readjust and do some changes. And the final 3 rounds went a lot smoother, but it's definitely not anything that again, we're not built as parents to watch it, and these kids aren't built to go through it. But the fact that they can do it with smiles on their faces, I'm telling you, it's unimaginable.
Yeah, it's hard to explain just watching kids go through it.
Yeah.
Because you walk in, I'm sure, well, it's during COVID, so they might have been a little more separated. I don't know how the protocol was. But I know that when I would visit hospitals, they'd all be allowed to play together and stuff. I don't know if it was probably like that even during COVID.
No, we were basically on lockdown in those times. Yeah.
But like you'd see these kids, and I had a conversation with this one young girl who was like the sweetest thing in the world. She was like 9. She had been there for like 3 years already, fighting this cancer. Then it went to this cancer. Then she had brain tumors. And you couldn't tell by the way she smiled, by the way she spoke to everyone, by her just laughter and just way she could just enjoy every moment. It's an inspiration you can't really explain.
Yeah.
I always say it's the gift and the curse, right? Especially for you guys and your family.
Yeah.
She probably is everyone's inspiration, but unfortunately the curse had to show you what parts to go to next. Yeah. Which is now having the foundation in order to live on her name and her spirit, which is a beautiful thing in that regard, even though it's a sad thing, right? I mean, I'm doing it, so yeah, I can't say that. I'm like, well, like I do that because it honors those who got us to this point.
Right. Yeah, I firmly believe after going through all of this with our daughter that we're all put on this earth for a reason. We just don't know what it is. I think that I was meant to be here to be an advocate. I just obviously didn't know this is what I was going to be advocating for. But she is such an inspiration to everything that we do. And, you have to somehow find peace in all of this. And our peace is knowing that, number one, that she was on loan. She was on loan to us from heaven, from God. We were never meant to have her longer than we did. And it's because she was meant to show us what we were meant to do. She was meant to show us so many amazing things and to really bring light to what these kids go through, but the innocence that keeps them grounded and what they can they can show us and what they can prove to us and what they can, allow us to live our lives not worrying about things so much. And the fact that they get up and there's so many fun things that even when she was going through all this, she found a way to smile. She found a way to laugh. She found a way to make us laugh and not allow this to define her, because this was her battle, but it was also her life to take control of. And watching these kids, watching her, but watching all these families and these kids take control of everything, whether it's, what they do on a daily basis or whether or not they cut their hair or all of that stuff, they're in control. And the sooner that we really give them that power to allow them to control their life, even at these young ages, you know what, I think we're on a better course, because they understand so much more than they get credit for. They really do.
What was Jaycee's personality before cancer? Like, what was her special, like, shine?
So number one, she was, the way our kids were named. Our first daughter was named. Our second daughter, our oldest picked her name out of a hat, and that's how our second daughter was named. Jaycee was, my wife and I picked Jaycee, and then the both of them, their older sisters got to pick middle names. So her full name is Jaycee Rose Sunshine. So she has two middle names, and she lived up to that 100%. She was so bubbly, and she loved life. She loved her sisters more than anything in the world. And, we joke today that if she was here, she'd be riding their coattails. She'd be shotgun when they're going to the coffee houses, and she'd be talking to their boyfriends. It's just, that's who she was. She wanted to be around them all the time. She loved going to school, loved her friends, but she loved being just happy all the time. She was destined to have her name kind of in lights, but it was on her own terms. Like, before TikTok was TikTok, I think it was called Musical.ly, and she would do those same type of things, the short little videos, and she would record them, but she would never post them, but she would only do them because it was on her terms when she wanted to do it. And she didn't want you putting the camera on her, but she would do it herself. She was always in control of that kind of stuff, and just was always the way to light up a room and smile and laugh. And that was her. From before to after, she still found a way to make you laugh and make you smile, because she was just, again, innocent, just a kid, didn't understand all this. I mean, she understood it, but didn't. She's still in that mindset of, I'm still growing up. I'm just a kid. I'm going to be like everybody else. I'm not going to worry about this stuff. That's who she was. And that's who she would be today, too.
So as a father, what are some of the favorite moments that you shared that have changed everything now for you? That, like, you could still recall and kind of still drive you to go to and push what you're doing now?
So it's, like I said, the way that she was, it made you happy all the time. And watching them together, watching her with her other sisters made you happy, made you smile. And I will say this too. I tell people this all the time. My kids are my greatest achievement in life. I will never achieve anything greater than my kids. And being a girl dad, being a father, it's the most important job in the world. And they all show me exactly why I get up every day. Jaycee's light was just, we have, one memory is that we have a dog, a pit bull, and he's phenomenal. Okay. He will change your image of pit bulls around the world. He's just a lover.
That smile.
He's phenomenal. But his favorite toy is a hula hoop. Okay. So he's a big bad pit bull, loves a hula hoop. But he loves to run around in the yard with it, and the girls would sit on this little roll cart that my wife uses to garden, and he would just pull them across the driveway. And these videos pop up all the time, and on Facebook memories, that kind of stuff. And the one is she's on it with one of her sisters and just going. You can hear her screaming and laughing, and and to hear her voice it's incredible. I love to hear that. But that guiding what they do, every single day, watching them grow, it's bittersweet not being able to see Jaycee grow up and do the same things. But I think that I live what she would have been. I kind of live it through them, and I know what she would have done, and I know how they would have treated her. And the three of them were the best friends in the world. And we always would tell them that friends are going to come and go, but you guys are going to be together for life, and you're always going to have each other's back. And that's honestly the reason that we continue to do what we do, because number one, these kids deserve to have their names in the stars. They deserve to have their names screamed from the rooftops every single day. The siblings deserve all the attention in the world for what they do, because they provide so much to these kids, to this community, to the families. They are the rocks, honestly. The moms and dads that are out there, what they do every day to ensure that those kids can continue to do what they're doing, you complete rock stars. But I don't ever want to take away from what all the kids do as a whole to really keep the family together.
It's that special bond that you can't really explain as much as like it can either divide you or bring you guys closer than ever before. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys went the right way
Right.
in the hard times. So that's a gift that you can't ever question.
No, there's
It's,
there's no way to, and like I said before, there's really no way to understand why it went in that direction, because it's such a hard thing mentally, and it's such a hard thing emotionally and spiritually, and anything you want to look at it, it hurts, and it's hard to figure out the next step. But I think every day, I think the one thing we look at is, as long as we're together, we're going to be able to keep moving forward with this. And her legacy is never going to stop being built, and her light is never going to stop shining. We're going to keep doing this for her and for every other child that she would have wanted to be a part of helping if she was here with us.
it's like we're both trying not to like get emotional here.
Yeah, it's
You can take a second. Yeah.
and I love talking about all of this. It is definitely harder for me. This month is hard in general, because this is the month that we're supposed to dedicate to brain tumor awareness and brain cancer awareness. And, in September, we do the same thing with kids. And I feel like we struggle every day to get that word out there. But this is difficult because, again, I see those memories pop up every single day, what I did last year and the year before and the year before. And, I just love seeing her little face and, what she's doing. And, this picture behind me, this is the hospital room that we were in, and she's just kind of looking out, and it's kind of symbolic of, kind of being stuck behind the glass in there and watching the world continue to move on without you there.
It's a great shot,
So,
though. It's a
yeah.
great story in that shot, which is, I see things like that, and I hear like you get the Facebook stories, and you probably have phone on your phone, you probably can go through. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I was like, we didn't have any phones, we didn't have and it's like, I feel like people don't understand how valuable that is. It might be sad to like see a video pop up, but like, know that sadness is worth it. I tell people, because people are always like, well, I have like hardly any photos of my family. I have no videos. Like if there's two of them, I have one clip from like a birthday party that my mom was. I don't know if I think it was a birthday party, but it's just the sound quality is not the greatest. The video is a little grainy, but like that's all I have of like my mom's voice, my father's voice, or my sister's voice. So it's one of those things that people don't understand, that's such a blessing that's like the good part that these kids get. They get a phone in their hand 24/7,
Right.
which is a horrible thing, but it's like you get to capture moments. So people are always like, why are you taking photos, Jason? And I'm like, I'm going to take photos of every and anything. I don't care what anyone says anymore. It's like I'll look back in 20 years and now have that photo, which I don't have from my growing up. So
Right.
I think it's a special moment that you have those. And if you don't mind me asking it a little bit more personal, because as you know, I think I did it when we first spoke. I like to give some of my wisdom as my old age goes, in like at least in trying to navigate things. Because I saw, I'm happy I didn't offend you. I saw that you did add the 501c3 to your profile, which was awesome.
Yep.
Are you sharing those memories of Jaycee, or are you just keeping them personal with them too? Because I didn't see a lot of the younger videos. I saw a couple, but I also like to just get the story before I like see everything, so I could ask a million questions without already knowing the answers.
Sure. No, A lot of stuff is shared, but there are some internal things that that my wife and I don't share that we kind of keep close to the heart, and that's it's just kind of a personal thing. But we share a lot of stuff out there because, again, I love talking about her and I love putting it out there. If I could share, and I'll tell people too that, the reality of the situation is that this disease, that plagues all these 47 kids every single day, it's not a commercial, and the real life pictures, the ones that I have that I've never shared before, would bring the strongest whatever person to their knees 100% if I showed the pictures out there that we took during her treatments and things like that, because it's real and it's scary and it's raw and it's not fun to look at. A lot of the happier stuff and things that she did even through treatment. There's a video on TikTok that I've shared multiple times, and it's hilarious. If you watch it, it's funny. And it was in the Christmas, right before Christmas, we were in the hospital for her doing chemo, and we were in the hospital before they renovated it, and whatever was going on in there, if you left the bathroom door just a crack, it would just automatically slam shut on its own, just randomly. Wow. So there's a whole video of us basically, her and I, like ghost hunting in the hospital room, and it's hilarious. And she's singing, she's like singing in the background, and she's like and I'm like, I'll get real close to it, and it just shuts on its own, and I freak out, and she's laughing, and it's like that's the kind of stuff that I would share. That was the fun side of things because that's her personality. And it proves that it's real, but at the same time, that's what these kids are. They still have that ability to have fun, and we try to find ways all the time of trying to make things fun, make an adventure out of it. Because without that, you do spend your time really in a dark place, and you spend enough time doing that while you're figuring out what's going on. But that ability to do that. I can't say it enough that if you have the opportunity to speak to one of these children that are going through this, do it. 5 minutes. The perspective on life that they will give you is unreal.
Yeah, it's the heartstrings. It's very, very true.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't actually know if you mentioned your two younger kids. Well, they're all young, right? Your two other kids' names, but you mentioned they picked the names, but you didn't mention them, so you can say them by name if you want. But do Jaycee's sisters help at all now with the foundation stuff? Do they have that spirit to live on with that too, or is it too hard for them sometimes?
Honest, so our oldest daughter, her name is Annalisa, and she'll when she's home from college, she will help me with the care packages, stuff like that. But mainly right now she focuses on school, which is perfectly fine. And our 17-year-old, her name is Miley, and she, you can tell we have a Disney household. So she will also kind of get involved in things like that when she's not busy with school or gymnastics or things like that. They help a lot with our events, or if we're at the farmers market, stuff like that, they'll get involved kind of in that manner. But a lot of times what they do is they just kind of focus on their school and get involved when they have a few minutes. But they were, in the very beginning, and especially when Jace was here doing it, they were very, very hands-on. And if they didn't have a million other things going on as, young adults do, then they would be hands-on doing it.
And
right
it's
now.
healthy for them to have their own lives outside of just holding something.
And they deal, both of them dealt with and deal with the loss of her very differently. When she passed, they both turned to their friends. They really didn't turn to my wife and I, which is completely fine. We wanted them to be comfortable and being able to share things, and the way that they do it is through a lot of happy stuff. They share. We can still sit around as a family and laugh about, God, Jace would have done this. You imagine what she would have done right now, and we laugh about it because that's who she was, and that's how we want to remember her. My wife is very, very adamant about it, about never wanting to remember her in the sickness stages, never wanting to remember her in the way that was hard for her. She wants to remember all the way she was before it was all going on. And that's 100% okay. And we all do it. We all do it different, but they both, my oldest, she chose a career path in business, which she's from the time she could talk, wanted to own her own business. So she stayed that course. Miley is going off to college in the fall, and she's going to be a child life specialist. And she decided to do that because of watching the way that they dealt with Jaycee in her treatments and wanted to carry that on. So my oldest also, she created a port pillow that goes over the seatbelt, which is something that we include in the care packages today. And we have one volunteer that actually makes them for us, and she makes hundreds at a time, and they'll drop them off at my house. And we don't charge anything for that. We just include them in there, and that's kind of her way of giving back. And it's incredible to watch what we've been able to do and how everybody's hands are in it, and how everybody's ideas are part of it, and it continues to grow.
I mean, I love that, and that's special, and it will be the family legacy.
Yeah.
In a lot of sense, so that's a beautiful thing. So with the care packages, because we've mentioned them a bunch, but can you tell us what are they, what's inside them, and like the process that you go, I guess, to just getting as many as you need
Sure.
to be hand them out, and where you're giving them out?
So the way that it started was when we came home and decided this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to give back to other families. It was literally my wife and I on Facebook, Instagram, scouring, looking for people that we could send these to. That's how it started. And on the basement floor, just stuff laid out all over the place. And we decided we want to do this. So we put it out on the internet. And at that point, we had a huge kind of community following at the moment, because support kind of adjusts a little bit from when your child is going through things versus if they pass it, it kind of adjusts. At that moment, we had a huge following. We put an Amazon list out there and just had boxes and boxes of stuff showing up. And so we decided, okay, well, we'll just keep going. We have, we always put based on the ages, and we ask for likes and dislikes, and we try to cater to them as much as possible. Coloring books, crayons. We always have handmade blankets that will go in every single one of them. We also have handmade hats, but we've also partnered with Love Your Melon, and they send us hats that we can put in the packages as well. We'll put games in there, Play-Doh, for the older kids, headphones, things like that. So we try to cater it by age the best we can, and it started on the basement floor. It moved upstairs when it got bigger. It's back in the basement again, except it's the whole basement now. And thank God it's finished down here. But we are...
You're in the basement too?
Yeah, stuck in the basement. And it evolved into a website where all of our care packages are streamlined. People can request them. We are in most hospitals across the country where their social workers will put our information out there. We're part of the Hope Portal. We now are roughly around 1,400 packages that we have sent across the country. That also includes several different places outside of the country that we've sent them. Those are a little bit more expensive, so it's on a by donation basis if we have the money to send them. One of the coolest things, like I said, we also include port pillows in there, which is what my daughter created. We also include in a lot of our packages now a children's book that my wife wrote called Fred and Friends, that also is on our Amazon list, and a coloring book that goes with it that we send along, which is a really cool thing that allows us to not only put a little bit more of ourselves into these boxes, but bring a little bit of joy into something that was created wholeheartedly by us and by my wife. I say us, but it's her that created the book. I didn't do anything except put the connections to the publisher. She did everything else, and it's a fun thing to do. It sucks that we have to exist in this space and that we have to be needed in this space, but it's a labor of love for us and a passion that we know that Jaycee would have loved to do. And when she was home, even after chemo, feeling like garbage, she'd be like, do we have any packages to do? Because it took her out of that mindset of sickness and into the mindset of I can be doing something for somebody else. And the best thing ever was when I would tell her, if there was somebody her age and things like that, I'd say put yourself in a box, and she would do it, and she loved it. And so it was a definite conversation and decision whether or not we were going to continue it after she passed. And I think that it was such a necessity for us to do it, and we saw the need. But I also use, podcasting and social media and that package, care packages, as my therapy to continue to kind of survive and get through it. And that's, I think, staying busy is the only way that I stay in somewhat of a sanity state.
I totally understand that. Plus, I could relate because I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if this is something we could add with you and your wife's for care packages. Sure. I don't know, but we did that. I created this when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
And then I finally brought it to life because I didn't have a publisher. I just used Amazon, so I don't know. But it's just a book for families to explain like cancer to kids, for like parents that might be going through it. But if you do it the right way, you could tell it in any which way that you want. But it's just to show them to the process of getting through cancer.
Sure.
And what happens. So when you said Play-Doh, I almost died. It was the one thing we were not allowed to touch in school or have come to our house because my mom was so allergic to it. It was wild. And no doctor knew why.
That's crazy.
Her eyes would like swell up and she would like be in miserable pain until it was like completely out of the house.
That's nuts.
It was wild.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that word in forever.
But the book that my wife wrote called Fred and Friends, it's something that we designed it in a way, and she wrote it in a way that in the book it never mentions the word cancer. What it's meant to do is kind of give kids the opportunity and the understanding to say, no matter what you're going through, you can find an adventure in it. You can go to the hospital and find an adventure. You can go, if you're getting treatment for whatever, you can turn your bed into a race car. It's really kind of a cool thing. And to be honest with you, once we got it done and published, then I remember talking to her and saying, do you realize we never mentioned the word cancer in here one time? We never said it. And that's what made it really cool, because it can be for everybody. And we love it. And the main character, Fred, obviously it's loosely based on Jaycee's journey and things like that. And all the characters are, they're like the nurse is a porcupine because they've always got needles, and the doctor's a wizard because they're supposed to have the magical cure. And it's like we have all these different. It's kind of like Winnie the Pooh. Like they all have the different ailments. Once you figured out later in life, they all had an ailment. All these characters have different things going on with them, and we associate it with an animal. And all those characters, I have tattooed on my leg because that was part of a fundraiser that we did at one point. And then it became like, well, now this is the best business card that I have for this book, is to put these out there and be proud of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many characters are on your leg though? Is it like 50?
Right now, I think there's 6 on there, but it's the coolest thing ever. And at some point, I'll have them. They're all done like line drawings. At some point, there's gonna be a background, and it'll be kind of filled in like the book. But I'm proud of my wife for doing it. And at some point, it's going to become a series, and she's going to do more books. And when she's sitting around, she has time. She'll write more on them and stuff like that. And it's really cool to watch her create.
I think that's amazing. Again, it also gave her outlet also, which is a beautiful thing. Or I'm just saying that I don't have her here, but I'm guessing because I know it firsthand, which is weird because it's so important that kids have books. Because again, when I was growing up, I'm sounding so old when I do these things. There are no books, and then there are books now, but no offense to a lot of them, they're not really amazingly thought out, I don't think. Mm-hmm. The ones I've seen, the personal connection to the story. So I read them and I was like, no, right. They don't understand sitting in a hospital room, waking up in a hospital room, screaming for nurses. They don't have that. They don't understand that. So the words don't reflect the actual feeling that happens. So it was always my mission, and it's a series. And so, yeah, that's very And this is why I love this community, because I would have never known that there was someone as like you guys doing such an amazing thing too, because it feels good to know that other people are doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I equate it a lot to, there's no real, I said, obviously, there's no books for us to understand how to do this, and there wasn't anything for us. And I equate it to, there's a million books on how to raise kids, but I would say that a million of those books are written by people that don't have kids.
Right.
That real life experience is so much more important than, to me, what book learning will give you. Because if you're able to kind of live it, and you can write it, and you can teach people, and you can pass that experience on, it's so much more impactful. And so, being able to do something like this with, even with just children's books, where it comes down to their level, and it gives them something to relate to, and something to, build on. I think it's incredibly important, and a piece that misses a lot.
And it takes the scariness away when they have a cartoon or a sketch instead of a grown up trying to explain things sometimes.
Right.
Or especially when doctors come in.
Yeah.
They still scare the shit out of me. I'm an old man.
Yeah.
I don't want. Every time I walk in, I feel like I'm failing a test. Like, it's like, what am I here for today?
No. We generally had good luck with that. And one funny thing that I'll say is that when we were in for Jaycee's stem cell treatments, there was one doctor that came in that she had a crush on, and when his name was Dr. Matt, and when we were in the hospital, the only thing she wanted to do was be on the phone with her sister. She would FaceTime them, and sometimes when they were in school and they couldn't talk, but they would literally sit there on the phone for an hour and not say a thing. She just wanted to be a part of it. But she would tell him, and she would talk about him, say, yeah, he smells good. He's nice. I said,
awesome.
Jaycee, calm down a little bit, okay? You can get daddy all worked up because now you're getting crushes on people. But that was just, again, that's her personality coming out, and just being able to make light of a situation and help us get through it.
Now, you just threw something out there that I have to ask you about. So she had stem cell treatment. That was during the first round. Is that why, or the second round? Because that's why then they also did it.
She had 5 rounds of chemo, and at the end of that 5th round of chemo, they do their MRI and things like that, and they were showing that things were not working, things were not making any difference, and the next step, which is usually end all be all, is stem cell transplant. That's supposed to basically take away everything and reset you to brand new, which, again, I've always questioned why that doesn't happen in the beginning, but that's neither here nor there. And so they said, okay, just, you're going to be in for a long haul. And I said, how long is that going to be? And they said, it could be weeks, it could be months in the hospital going through this. So we had to have the stem cells harvested, had them all harvested, and she gave like 10 times more than she was supposed to. So that was phenomenal. And then we ended up going into the hospital probably a couple weeks earlier than she was supposed to, because she just wasn't feeling well, and we needed to get it started early. So we checked into the hospital, and we were in the hospital for a total of 52 days for her to have the stem cells transplanted, and that included her having...
Well, they got to be isolated for like 30 days, right? Because they got to take down the white blood cells to like 0.
Yeah, so you're going in Milwaukee, it's called the hot unit, and you're in a room behind a room, and you're in there and locked down basically. I could come and go, she couldn't go anywhere, which again didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then,
right.
She's the hot room is where you are in Milwaukee. That's where you are when they're doing these stem cell transplants and things like that. And so she went through initially, you go through 15 rounds of high dose chemo, and this is hot and heavy. They pound it into you, and the last drug that they gave her is one that it's called Thiotepa. It only excretes through the pores. The only chemo drug that excretes through the pores. So every day I think she had to take 3 or 4 baths to wash this off of her skin. And she hated it, and you have to get her up out of bed. She'd be sleeping. You have to get her up and do it. But after all of this was done, they put the stem cells in, they start the transplant. And if anybody understands it, for whatever reason, which nobody can explain, it smells like cream corn. The room smells like
I've
cream
heard
corn.
that one yet.
Yeah, it's odd. They warned me in the beginning, and I was like, okay, that's just weird. But once they started giving it to her, and I got close to her, I could smell it, and it was intense. So now, years later, trigger point, I cannot be around it or smell it. I can't do it.
It's understandable.
But they gave it to her, and after that, then it's just once they put the stem cells in, it is a waiting game. It is a waiting game. They do blood tests multiple times a day, and they would do one at 4 a.m, and by 6 a.m, I had my chart open, and that thing would pop up, and I'd be able to see if her ANC was starting to move up, and I'd see just a decimal 0.001. It would start to move, and I'd be excited. Just out of my bed, I'm excited. I'm talking to the doctors. I go, yeah, that's phenomenal, but it's going to be a while. We got to get it to a certain point, and of course, my question is, when can we go home? But the stem cells, she recovered super fast. Like I said, we actually were there for 40 days initially. We went home, and we had to come back 2 days later for them to do follow-up testing, blood testing, and stuff like that, which, looking back on it now, I wish we would have just stayed, but we did what we did, drove her out there, and the 2 days later, I had nothing. I had her, I had my phone, and that was it. I didn't have any clothes, nothing. She ended up having a focal seizure while we were getting her checkup, and which, again, if anybody doesn't know, it's not what you would think of with a seizure. Just think of it as looking at somebody and the lights go out, and there's no communication, there's no anything, there's just nothing there. And that ended up landing us there for another 12 days. And for, I believe, 8 of those days, she was essentially in a vegetative state. I couldn't talk to her. She couldn't communicate with me. And I remember that evening after being admitted again into the ICU and having nothing. I had nothing with me. And I remember calling my wife on the phone, and I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring her home. And that broke me because I'm alone. I don't have a phone charger at this point. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. And I put the phone up to her, and I said, talk to her. I said, just talk to her through the phone. And, we just went back and forth with everything going on and just looking at her and sitting by the bed and just being, she would sometimes just kind of roll over and look at you but never say anything. And I know that she was in there. I know that she was trying to communicate, and her body just was not letting her do what it needed to do. And it was honestly about 7 or 8 days later that I was just in the room with her, and she just said, Mommy. And I looked at her and I said, what? I said, did you just speak? Did you just say something? And she's looking at me, and she kind of like, and I mean, if the most minuscule nod you've ever seen in your world, just enough to know that it happened. And I was like, okay, what did you say? And over the next couple of days, she started to speak more, and she started to kind of communicate a little bit better. And she would always put up the I love you sign with her hand, and so she put it up. And we had the most incredible nurse. Her name was Yanira, and she was there for us and did everything she could to get us out of there because she knew how important it was. Home medicine, in the sense of just being in your own home environment, is so beneficial. And it was another couple of days, and finally she started talking again, and she started, communicating. And when we got home, it was like just a 180. But those 12 days, I honestly did not know if I was going to be coming home with her. I thought, I'm going to be here by myself, and I can't do anything, and I'm going to have to make all these decisions. And going for a routine checkup after the stem cells was going to be the last time that her sisters or her mom were able to see her. And it was terrible. The sunshiny moment with all of it was that we had another family that we had actually sent a care package to that lived close to us, that was happening to be coming within a couple of days for a checkup for their daughter, and they brought me a suitcase of clothes because
Oh,
I
wow.
had nothing, and that was what I had. But it just those days were very difficult, and that total 52 days, and sleeping on those stupid pull-out couches and chairs that are terribly uncomfortable, beeping monitors. I can't listen to that stuff anymore, and it was difficult, and I don't know how to properly explain that to people. But I wish, like I said earlier, that's what I want the commercials to be. That's what I want. I want mothers and fathers that are at their lowest point in life with watching their kids go through this. I want those monitors that put us into a triggered downward spiral, because if you see that as an outsider to this community, you would realize every day how important it is that we do something to make it not like that anymore.
You're just trying to break me too, aren't you?
I'm doing the best I can. Doing the best I can, man.
I mean, listen, it's real. If you weren't emotional, it wouldn't be, it's authentic. You are being true to yourself and the love that you have for your family.
Yeah.
You can't get more beautiful than that.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's real life.
it's it's one of those. I just, like I said, there's no way for us to properly explain this that will make people understand, aside from you actually living it and being a part of it. And I tell people that I want you to understand, but I don't want you to understand. I don't want you to understand what I felt, what we felt as a family, but I want you to understand how real this is, and how real the possibility is, unfortunately, that it could be you any day. Because as simple as it is to say, we weren't cancer parents until the day we were. And what we've seen from that to that, I believe, honestly, after that 12-day stay, or not, the 40-day stay, that when we went back and she had that seizure, and as soon as they did the first test of spinal fluid that they had to extract from the shunts that she had installed, it was just laced with cancer cells. And so I looked at the doctor and I said, so to me, what happens is that the high dose chemo, which actually went through the blood-brain barrier, which the other chemos did not, to me, it basically opened the floodgates for these cancer cells to spread across her body. And it was written in the stone at that point. And that's, we were dealt with a hand that there was no way to fix it now. It had gone everywhere. It had invaded other parts of her body, and it's called leptomeningeal disease, which was not really explained to us very well until I could read it in the notes and realize that it wasn't really given enough credence to us. It wasn't really given it wasn't explained to us in a way that maybe we would have taken different precautions or looked for different therapies or things like that. And it's an unfortunate spot that I think a lot of parents are in, that doctors don't speak to us like we know what the hell we're talking about, or like we don't research everything, or the big words are too big for us to understand, when, reality of it is we could probably spell them and explain them better than you if you want. And it's a shame. And I've had arguments with people in the past about this, and somebody said, do you think you're smarter than a doctor? And I said, yes. And I said, not because I went to school for 8 years, 10 years, but because I live this every day, and I don't get to turn it off. I don't get to clock out and go home. Not because I'm more intelligent of what you've learned in the books and schools and stuff like that, but because I lived it.
Also, you get to see it from a different perspective than being taught specifically how to handle one specific thing with that criteria.
Right.
I always look at health like everyone has to go down their own journey, and they have to figure out, because every body handles everything differently.
Yeah.
But I also know that you can't take. I feel like you, if I can say, and
Sure.
you can tell me to cut this out if you want, but I feel like you're also holding on to blaming yourself a little. It sounds like, because I've been there, and one, it's never your fault, because you did exactly what you had to do as a father and a husband to handle that situation with the knowledge that you knew then. We could always look back and say we could have done this, or it should have been this, but for where you were, what you were doing 100% dad duty, and you should never question that. You can question doctors now, but never
Right.
question how you did what you did back then. It's I can guarantee you, Jason wouldn't want that either because you made her time that much more special because you
Yeah.
were there.
Yeah.
Holding any of that in isn't helping you to to keep pushing forward like you should.
No,
If
I
that makes
no, it makes perfect sense, and I agree. But I mean, I will tell you that 100% that I feel every day, even though in my heart I believe that. In my heart, I know that we did everything that we could for her. We did everything that was possible, the options that we had, everything that was presented. We did what we could, but I still always feel like I failed, like we failed her in a way, because as parents, your one job is to protect your kids. And this was something that we could not protect her from. And so, as much as I know internally that we didn't fail her, I still feel like we did. And it's one of those things you can't shake. And it's kind of like saying that don't ask questions after the fact. Don't ask the what ifs, because you'll never know the answer to those what ifs. You'll never know that what if we caught it sooner? What if we didn't withhold chemo in the beginning? What if we, whatever it, I don't know, didn't live near the power lines? Whatever the questions are, we'll never know the answer to it. But we still do it. You can't stop it. And I'd love to say practice what I preach, but I will always feel like we failed. Even though in my heart I know that that's not true.
I know there's another word for it, but it's you have like cancer survivor guilt of not being able to take it from her and put it onto yourself.
Right.
And your father, so that's logical. And again, it goes back because I watched my mom, have to bury her husband and my sister, her daughter, and it was the daughter part. A parent should never have to bury their child.
Right.
That, in a sense, for whatever reason that happens, is the worst thing for a parent.
Yeah.
So I've seen it, I saw it, I lived through it. But, as a parent, you did everything that you could. Later on, you could self-doubt just the wishing you could have just replaced yourself in the situation. I think that you guys are doing so much good and have this legacy of Jace now. And I'm using Jace because I feel like I know her now. Sorry.
Sure.
Uh, but you should really think that's honor that because it's a beautiful thing, and I get the guilt, but you didn't fail in the parts that where you could have failed,
Right.
and you did that perfectly. You did what a dad and a mother and
Right.
they were all there for her. That's the biggest. I mean, that's sometimes the best medicine a person can have is actual love surrounding it.
Yeah. No.
So,
No. It's 100%. And that I will always say too that these kids, all of them are included. JC is obviously, I'm a little biased, but they will always tell you, or they will always care more about you and how you're going to do if they're not here than themselves. I will jump ahead and I will say that, and the most meaningful way in the world is that on the night that Jaycee passed, she couldn't speak at that moment. The leptomeningeal disease and things like that had taken her ability to speak away. So she could just kind of point, she could nod, she could that kind of stuff. She was trying to breathe. We had oxygen on her and stuff like that. And I looked at her in the eyes and I said, "Are you okay?" And she shook her head yes.
yeah.
I knew she wasn't. But at that moment, it was about making sure that we were okay. And I remember looking at my wife in that moment and I said, "You need to go get the other two," because
Yeah. And was that the day she passed? The night?
that was within a couple hours. So she, within the cancer world, I think everybody can figure this part out, but they go into that sleep that they just don't wake up from.
Yep.
Their body slowly starts to shut down little by little. Her heart took forever because it was just so big. It was so, it was so not done with life, but her body failed her. Her spirit did. And I think that she knew what was happening. I think she understood it. I think she was at peace, and she wanted us to be at peace. So she did everything she could, you know.
Yeah.
And they're so incredibly in tune and in touch with what's happening, and that's kind of part of them understanding more than they're given credit for. And in those moments when maybe they should be scared, maybe they should be anything other than what that was, they're not. They're at peace. I believe wholeheartedly that, you know, at that moment, her spirit left her body. Her body began to shut down, but she was right there with us. So that was difficult. I mean, obviously for a lot of reasons, but that moment almost made it more bearable because I knew that she was going to be okay. I knew that she would be, because as a parent, there's no time you're ever going to ask us, is there a better place for your child rather than right next to you? And I'm always going to tell you no. But at that moment, I knew, and my wife knew, that her being in heaven was better than her being here, because at least she would be whole. At least she would be out of all the suffering and everything that she had to go through. That was the best place, because we knew that one day we'd see her again.
Yeah.
And we hope that when we do, she's proud of what we did after she left.
Yeah. All right. We should have a fun question now.
Bring it on.
Sorry, I don't think you were planning on crying today, were you?
Listen, it comes out of nowhere sometimes, you know?
I might act innocent, but I like to get down to it. Now, I do want to bring it back, because I know, and I don't know if I got it right, the whole, is it Duff Goldman?
Duff Goldman, yeah.
I know that you have like a fun story with that. Mm-hmm. Can we share that?
Yeah, no, that's, so before anything that would go on, when we first moved to Wisconsin, I was working for the post office. I was working overnights. So, you know, before I would try to take a nap at, 8 o'clock so I could go to work at 10. We like to watch, cooking shows. It was huge for us. Like I said, my oldest always wanted to be a business owner. What she wants to do is a bakery. She loves to bake. That's what she does. So we would watch these cooking shows. And we'd watch Duff Goldman, and I believe it was called Ace of Cakes, and he would make these ridiculous cakes that were they were interactive, and they had smoke coming out of them and lights and all this stuff. And the one he made, and it was called a battle corn, and it was this massive unicorn, but it just looked mean, and it was tough, and it was like, and that stuck with us through all of this. And then when it came time to create this organization, that was a combination of our girls coming up with this and saying Jaycee loved unicorns, and she was our unicorn in that sense. Obviously I don't have red hair and freckles. She came out. I've got two girls, blonde hair, and she comes out red hair and freckles. No rhyme or reason for it. She was our unicorn. And so when that show came out, and then we kind of reverted back, we're like, that's Battlecorn. That's awesome. It's a unicorn. It's somebody that's going into battle. It makes sense, and we rolled with it, and it is always stuck. And it's I'm happy to say that if you Google Battlecorn, the first thing that comes up is us and not Duff Goldman, which is really cool. Duff, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but it's really cool that we've taken something that is really so unique and put it over everything that we do. And people recognize the name. Our mission is global. It's not a local issue. It's not a local problem. And so, yeah, it's kind of fun how that reality stuff can kind of take hold with what you're doing. But I mean, it gave us joy to watch that, and then it turned into something later on, which has been really cool.
It makes you light up when you tell it. That's one of the cool parts about it, right?
Yeah.
So, especially after our last.
Right.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that you could take away from everything that Jaycee's story is, not only to yourself, but carry it forever with you, what would that be?
So it's going to kind of go to a speech that I made a year ago in DC, and the title of the speech was Hope. When you are given something like this, really a challenge, a diagnosis, going through this, the one thing that you have is hope, and it's the hope that always shows up no matter what. And what I would always tell people is that you have to have it, whether it's, in the beginning it was hope that we're gonna beat this, and then it was hope that this relapse isn't bad, or hope that we're gonna get to take her home, hope that there's gonna be something better that comes from everything that we've gone through, and it never stops. What I take away from all that we've been through is that the one thing we've never stopped doing is hoping that what Jaycee went through impacts so many more people for years to come. And I think it has. I think that her story touches a lot of people. I think I still have text messages in my phone from people I have no idea who they are, that when she passed away or when she was going through things, that I would get text messages from people or messages from Facebook saying, we read your story and we were so inspired. And that to me means that hope showed up, because even though the worst of the worst happened, our hope that a change and an impact would happen moving forward came true. And that's the most important thing I think that I can take away from this, is that no matter what we've gone through, what we've seen, the ups, the downs, the ins and outs, the very, very bad to the very, very funny, hope was always there with us and never took a day off. So.
No, I like that. That's keeping it grounded and always making sure that you're going forward.
Yeah.
And I take it the whole family has that.
Yeah. I think that, I just love being able to talk about her. I love being able to talk about what we've done and what we continue to do, because that means that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, what I was meant to do. I'm continuing to carry the legacy that she left us behind. This one might get me, but I say this every time because I think this is the ultimate about what her legacy meant and what it was meant to do. At her funeral, the pastor there said these, and I promise you I sat through the whole thing and didn't cry. I think I was out of tears at that point. And I didn't. I was at that point, there was nothing left. This broke me then, because what he said is that when Jaycee got to Heaven's Gate, she looked at God and said, but I only had 8 years. And he looked at her and said, but look what you did with those 8 years. That broke me then, and it breaks me now, because it's so true. What she was able to do to impact us as a family, to impact, as a mom and dad, as her sisters, her school, her community, people that still know her story and tell her story, that to me means that everything we know is true, that she was on loan to us to teach us all of these things. She taught us, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and now she's watching us continue to carry that legacy on. And so that's the most important thing I think I got out of all of that. Listen, like I said, I didn't have tears left in that day. I just didn't. And that was the part that I think, yeah, we only had 8 years, but at least we had those 8.
Yeah. I want to thank you. I wasn't expecting it to go in the route that it went, and I think it went in such a beautiful, organic way that I'm actually so honored that you shared so much with me and community. I think it's so relatable, yet people don't realize that's the reality behind cancer. So
right.
For you and your family, I am honored that you all allowed us into your world for even a moment, and am so gracious to moments like these. So I thank you for taking the time to share all this. And I hope that we can do as much as we can to spread Jaycee's name.
I appreciate it. Any opportunity, like I said, any opportunity I get to talk about her, I'm 100%. I'm always going to say I have 3 kids. It's always going to be the way that I'll come across. And unfortunately, when I say it, if people go deeper into it, then I'll say, I'll tell them, why, she's not around. And the first response is usually, I'm sorry. And it's like, I get it, but I don't want you to not ask me questions. I don't want you to not talk. I love talking about it. So if you see me in public and you want to know about it, want to know about her, you want to know about I think for most parents, they want to talk about it. There are people that want to kind of Homer Simpson into the bushes, and I get it and I support it. But, most of us want to talk about it because the more we do, the more awareness there is, better opportunities we're going to have.
Self-healing.
Yeah.
Being able to not hold it all inside you.
Yep.
So I feel so many people, in fact, I know relatives who you can't even mention my mom's name. It shuts down right there. You got to find a process that gets you out of the darkness.
Right.
So, but yeah. All right. Well, this will be the fun part. We'll do some rapid fire questions. A favorite old pastime for like when you were a kid that you still do?
I grew up, my parents were divorced when I was 6, and my sister was born that same year, so I blame that on her. I still do that today. I let her know.
That's a pastime fun for you.
Oh my God, driving her. Listen, my sister drove me crazy as a kid. I think all of our siblings do that. It is what it is. Yeah. I think it's part of it. She's 6 years younger than me, so we didn't relate as kids growing up. Now, she's closer with our family, and she's joined our board on our nonprofit, so she does a lot of stupid things with us now. Just last week, I duct taped her to a tree, real life.
So that was your childhood coming to life.
Oh, I was letting it out. Oh yeah. I went hard on the duct tape, by the way. It was great. She held on to the tree, by the way. It takes about 6 or 7 rolls to hold a woman to a tree.
Lesson learned.
I know. It's something else. I'm letting her do it to me in a couple of weeks. For my birthday, we're going to do it again.
All right, so what's your favorite food that you go to, guy? Because you're in Wisconsin, right?
We are in Wisconsin.
What's the Wisconsin go-to?
I just found out I'm lactose intolerant about a month ago. What is happening with
getting old?
I know. Listen, I'm gonna be 45 this year. In a couple of weeks, I'll be 45, and I just realized at 44 is when it all fell apart. I used to be, all cheese, milk, all that kind of stuff. Nope, not anymore. Now I have to be lactose free. So love cheese, but it's a bad 2 days afterwards if I eat it. Just put it out there. But I am a big fan of Chinese food. My wife is the same way. We love Chinese food. Like we have a buffet that's near us. Ridiculously expensive for just 2 of us to go and eat there, but love it.
Those are the best meals, though.
Love it. You'd think that I would be like my favorite food would be seafood. I grew up in Florida, but it's really not. Not really.
We're in Florida.
South of Tampa, like 45 minutes near Sarasota area.
Okay. I'm from Hollywood.
Okay. So, yeah, it was...
Fort Lauderdale, Miami.
I got out of there, and people ask the question, why would you go up north? Well, I grew up my whole life with no seasons, except hot, and hotter. And so, it was nice to move. We lived in Illinois for 7 years and hated that, and then moved up here. And so it's wonderful. We don't have snow all the time.
No, I understand. I love seasons. Florida doesn't have them. I 100% on board with you.
Yeah.
100%. Do you guys have a family tradition that you do every year?
No, God, no. We, like as kids, we never went on vacation. I can tell you that right now. We never did. The greatest thing we did was tax day. When tax day would come, then my mom would take us to buy stuff. And back then, like buying a CD player, but kids now are like, what the hell's a CD? Right. But that was then. We never did vacations. Now we did vacations before Jaycee got sick, but that also kind of lined up with when COVID hit and couldn't do anything. Right. But honestly, we've never really had any. I wish we had something fun. We can say that's a tradition we do every year. We really don't. Okay,
then I'm going to ask a question that you do know.
Damn it.
What was Jaycee's favorite food?
Mac and cheese.
See? There you go.
Mac and freaking cheese. That any kind. And then she was like a connoisseur, man. If it was, that was the first food she had in the hospital after being in there for the first couple of weeks. She couldn't have food with anything, and then they gave her mac and cheese, and the first bite she took, you would have thought that it was the greatest food ever given in like a 5-star restaurant. It was the most wonderful thing. I wish we would have taken a video of her eating this stuff. It was like her eyes closed, and it was the greatest thing ever. But yeah, mac and cheese, no matter what, that was her go-to. And there were certain places that made it too cheesy, some places that made it not enough, and she knew her stuff. She probably would have had a vlog about it.
I'm gonna leave it with that because you're not gonna give any better answer.